Hello everyone, and welcome once again to Caleb Likes Books, and today I am going to be doing a book review, and today I'm going to be talking about 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea by Jules Verne. Now this is a classic science fiction book. I have not read a ton of sci-fi or classic sci-fi, but I was interested in checking this one out, and so I read it. Starting out with the positives as usual, first of all, I really enjoyed the plot and the premise behind this book. The premise essentially is about this professor named Professor Arnax, who is a character who hears about this thing in the ocean. People don't know if it's some kind of submarine or if it's a sea creature, but he is very interested in it and wants to go figure out what it is. And it turns out that it is a submarine, which he ends up on along with a few people who went on the expedition with him. And the book is essentially their travels aboard this submarine called the Nautilus, which is captained by Captain Nemo. And the book is basically their adventures going around the ocean and finding things and all that stuff. I enjoyed the plot of this book. It has a very adventurous sort of feel to it. The characters kind of finding all of this interesting stuff underwater and all these things. It's a pretty enjoyable plot. I actually also really enjoyed the characters in this, particularly Captain Nemo, but I also enjoyed the other characters, the side characters and stuff. There's only really a handful of primary characters in this book, and I thought all of them were really good. But as I said, I particularly enjoyed Captain Nemo. He has a very mysterious past that you don't really find out that much about. But he is a very interesting character, and I was very intrigued by him basically right from his introduction. Another thing I liked was, in a sense, the world building. Of course, this takes place in the real world, so it's not so much literal world building, but it talks about, like, the Nautilus submarine, for example, and it goes very much into what that is like, the kind of stuff and the technology that's in it. And even though nowadays it's not too far-fetched to have something similar to the Nautilus, nowadays, back when this was written in like the 1860s, I believe, this certainly was something that was very much in the future, and that kind of thing. And you definitely get that sense of like the main character, the professor, learning about this is just in awe of what has been achieved with this, and you definitely get a sense of that in this book. And I just enjoyed learning about the Nautilus and all of the stuff that was in it and the technology that it used. And there are also plenty of exciting moments throughout this book where certain events happen, which if you've heard of this book, you probably know about some of them, but I'm not going to spoil them just on the off chance that you don't. But there are some certainly exciting moments in this book, some interesting things that happen, both in terms of actual events and also character interactions and things that you learn about certain characters, such as Captain Nemo, who doesn't have a whole lot revealed about him, but the things that are revealed I thought were really interesting. And another positive, the final positive I'm going to talk about, is actually the writing style. I have not read a ton of classics at this point, but one of the things that has kind of put me off of them in some cases, and oftentimes is one of the big things that makes it more difficult for me to read, is the writing style. Of course, since these books were written, you know, decades or even centuries ago, the writing style sometimes can be kind of difficult to get through, but I actually found the writing style in this quite easy to read. So if that's something that you're worried about when it comes to classics, I don't think it's really an issue here. I found it very easily readable. As far as negatives with this, there aren't a whole lot of really big negatives. There were some parts of the book that were a bit slower, a bit more kind of boring to me, particularly when it came to the more scientific talk. You know, when they're exploring the ocean and stuff, they go very in-depth into certain species of ocean life and things like that, or when they're talking about the Nautilus, even though some of it was very interesting, they go very much into the science and the technology behind it and all that stuff, which wasn't as interesting. It was kind of dry, but that's kind of the main big thing that I was not into in this book. But overall, I did really enjoy this book a bit more than I expected to. I go into every book that I read hoping to enjoy it and going into it with a fairly positive mindset. Even if it's a part of a series maybe that Maybe I didn't love the previous book. I always go into it thinking, well, maybe I'll like this one more. I always try to go into it with a positive mindset, but this one, since it was classic sci-fi and everything, and I have not had necessarily the worst experiences with classics before, but it's definitely more hit or miss for me. I was going into it thinking, I'm not completely sure about this one, but I hope I like it. And thankfully, it surpassed my expectations. I did really enjoy reading this book a lot. As far as a rating out of 10, I would probably give it an 8 or maybe an 8.5, something in that range. I did really like it. It's not necessarily one of the best books I've ever read, but in terms of the handful of classics that I've read, this one is probably my favorite so far. But anyways, that is pretty much it for this review, so let me know down in the comments if you have read this book, what you think of it, and if you have not read this book, are you interested in reading it? Let me know down in the comments. And that is pretty much all for this video, so thank you for watching, and I will see you guys next time.